Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's podcast. I am Dr. Angela Queen, your MentalEase host. I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner and psych mental health nurse practitioner. In this space, we're going to talk honestly about mental health. We're going to talk about what it is, how it affects us, and how we can reach our best self. This podcast is designed for anyone who has ever felt kind of overwhelmed, anxious, stuck, or just unsure how to manage their emotional health. I'm hoping these podcasts will help your mental health and give you some mental ease, because after all, mental ease is all about ME. It's all about me. This week's podcast is the beginning of a 6-week episode titled Coping with Purpose. This session will be focused on building a foundation. We are talking about what mental health really means, what it looks like, types of coping, whether it's positive or negative, and how to change the negative, unproductive coping habits. So before we proceed, let me go ahead and say stop. Full disclosure, I know all the right things to say. I know all the right things to do during stressful times, but I don't always use them. So unfortunately, this podcast is actually self-directed. So, onward and upward. This first segment will be focused on the definition of mental health. First of all, let me say mental health is not necessarily the absence of illness. I know in the perfect world, truthfully, if you are healthy, you are considered without illness. But more importantly, mental health is the ability to manage stress, adapt to change, maintain relationships, and just function on a regular basis. So everyone has mental health and everyone has physical health. And like physical health, mental health can fluctuate over time. So key aspects or things to know about mental health is it exists on a spectrum. So just like physical health, some days you're having good days, some days you're having bad days. Sometimes you're really, really low, sometimes you're really elevated. So it's a spectrum, and it fluctuates depending on situations and things that occur that can change that. Number 2, things to know. Mood, stress, anxiety are all normal, and they're actually a part of being human. I don't think anybody can say that they've never had days where they just hated the world or was angry or depressed or just felt very anxious all day. So those feelings are normal, and it's just a part of being human. The problems arise when the experiences, the stressful experiences, are persistent. When they become persistent to the point that they're overwhelming and impair your ability to do life, then we're concerned about mental health. Please note, I don't like to use the word mental illness, mental disease, but because I am an educator and assistant professor, then I do use those in the college setting. So I try to avoid to use those terms though when I'm referring to my clients, because I truly think that mental condition is better because it fluctuates. To me, a disease is a negative connotation, and illness means something's wrong with us. So if I use those terms, disease or illness, it is probably just because I'm used to using that in the classroom. But I really like the word mental health condition. And I'm trying to be more proactive by using that word to kind of convey that what I really feel about mental health, that it's a condition. Please note, mental health conditions are not moral flaws. They're not flaws of your personality. And they're definitely not signs of weakness. The ability to adapt and overcome are signs of strength, perseverance, and resiliency. Mental health conditions are actually influenced by multiple things, just like physical health. One is genetics, another reason to blame your relatives. Life experiences, trauma. Have you witnessed someone being killed? Have you been sexually assaulted? Have you experienced the loss of someone tragically? Also, environment. Where do you live? What do you do? Who do you live with? What is your professional life like? Who are your friends? And biology are things that occur that affect our development. So maybe things that happened when we were in utero, or things that happened to us physically as a child that affected maybe parts of our brains developing. Why am I even saying this? Mainly because I want you to know that a mental health condition is not your fault. So I don't want you to be embarrassed or ashamed. These are truly the biggest barriers to healing. So during our podcast, we're going to leave the shame and embarrassment at the door and let our space be a space of healing. In segment 2, we're going to talk about coping. Coping refers to the ways we manage stress, emotions, and difficult situations. We all cope, whether we realize it or not, and coping actually uses thoughts and behaviors as our survival strategy to protect our mind from harm. The overall is to help us deal with and tolerate stress. Sometimes those thoughts and behaviors are helpful, and other times they are not. I apologize if you hear dogs in the background. Sometimes my dogs are positive coping mechanisms, and sometimes they're negative coping mechanisms. We do have doggies in our podcast at times, so they're playing. But back to the podcast. Apologies. So positive coping, we call adaptive coping. Those things that help us adapt, overcome, adjust to life stressors. Negative coping is called maladaptive coping. And maladaptive coping, first of all, let me say maladaptive coping mechanisms are not always bad. They're really just there to help us survive, okay? So let me say that they're not all bad, or not necessarily bad, but they are helping us just survive. They're giving our brain relief. Some types of maladaptive mechanisms, though, bring immediate relief from our stress, which is what we need, but then over time it can actually cause more harm than good. So I am going to do a podcast about specifics about coping mechanisms. We're going to briefly go through it today, but I want to go through and kind of identify, more specifically hone in on positive versus negative coping mechanisms and how we can identify the negative things that we're using to cope. So why do we even keep doing these things, though, these coping mechanisms, especially the negative ones? Why are we doing it if it's not helping? Why can't we just stop it? So I have a little clip here from Saturday Night Live that my husband has shown me in the past, and it always makes me have a little tickle.
I have this fear of being buried alive in a box. I start thinking about being buried alive and I begin to panic.
All right, well, let's go, Catherine. I'm going to say 2 words to you right now. I want you to listen to them very, very carefully. Then I want you to take them out of the office with you and incorporate them into your life.
Well, shall I write them down?
Well, if it makes you comfortable, it's just 2 words. We find most people can remember them.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are. Stop it!
I'm sorry?
Stop it!
Stop it?
Yes, S-T-O-P, new word, I-T. Go.
So that was funny. And yes, we wish it were that easy. But in reality, well, you know the saying, it's easier said than done. You just can't stop it. Please understand that I'm not making fun of any mental health conditions or concerns. I want everybody to understand that we can't just stop it. It doesn't work that way. But I also think that if we can't laugh at ourselves, then we really shouldn't be able to laugh at all. But we must understand how the brain responds to stress to understand how to counteract these negative thoughts and our negative behaviors. So just a little bit, I'm not going to get into a whole lot, but we're going to talk about that nasty little part of the brain called the amygdala. Stress activates that amygdala, which our brain then perceives stress as a threat. So whenever you perceive threat in your life, you want something to fix it immediately. And so our brain says, I need immediate relief. So we seek some type of short-term relief, and that works temporarily. And the relief is so needed that we realize how quickly the relief came. So we start making it that coping mechanism because it gave us that short-term and quick relief. We start making that seem like that's a normal way to cope. So we normalize that coping mechanism. We make it seem like that's the way we're supposed to handle the situation. And that may sound a little complicated, but when we talk about the different types of coping mechanisms in a minute, you'll understand what I mean by we normalize it. But normalizing that when it's not a beneficial mechanism actually helps us avoid dealing with the stress itself. In segment 3, we're going to talk about types of coping. Positive, adaptive versus negative or maladaptive. Some types of positive are mindfulness practice. I am going to do a podcast in the future about mindfulness and teach y'all a little bit about what that's about. Some of you probably already know how to practice mindfulness. There's also reflection. So reflect, you can do journaling, you can do just verbal self-reflection, also positive self-talk. Basically telling yourself that, giving yourself some credit for where you are considering where you came from. So tell yourself that, yeah, I'm stronger than I think, or I'm stronger than I feel, or I can do this because I've done this in the past. So positive self-talk, boost yourself up. Another one is talking to someone. And I mean talking to someone, not texting, not Facebooking, not Instagram, but actually talking to someone. It does makes a difference for you to listen to someone. Please don't exhaust your friends and family. Make sure you give that service back to them when they need help. My poor friends are so sick and tired of me because I've had a lot of transition in my life with professionally. So they're probably tired of listening to me, but I hope that I can actually give that back to them where they can come to me and, if nothing else, just listen to what's going on in their life. Having presence in their life. Exercising, I'm a huge exercise freak. And it's because it helps my brain shut down and stop thinking about things. With ADHD, sometimes exercising is the only thing that keeps my brain calm for a few minutes while I can just kind of regroup. So anything that messes up my exercise routine messes up my whole day. There's also yoga, and I have many colleagues who use yoga. I love yoga. I just don't have the capacity to do it here at my home because I have 5 dogs that will not let me sit on the ground for more than 10 minutes. Another one is meditation, and we are going to do a podcast on meditation just to give you an idea of what it's like. So I'm kind of excited about that. But negative or maladaptive, avoidance. When the stress arises, we just avoid it. We push it under the rug and act like it doesn't exist, which just makes things build and build and build. Anger outbursts or fighting, being aggressive toward others, blaming others. A real extreme one, or may not be extreme, it just depends on how you're handling things, but substance abuse. Are you abusing alcohol? Are you using illegal drugs? Are you overusing your prescriptive drugs, such as some of your medicines for anxiety? Are you taking more than you should? Because we call that self-medicating. When we feel like we can't get relief from stress, then using medications will either help us feel more relaxed, or using alcohol sometimes relaxes us, should relax us. And so therefore we will end up drinking more and more to get that same feeling of relaxation and calm, to the point that it causes addiction issues. For females mainly, but not only, overeating or emotional eating. Stress causes us to eat or want to eat. There is scientific knowledge that says that we crave things that are sugary when we emotionally eat. Overworking. Pouring yourself into your job is excellent. Your bosses will love you. You will be so productive. The problem is you're avoiding the stress, the other situations in your life. Tidbit for you too. If you are so productive and you're putting that much time into work and you're doing a good job, then your boss is going to give you more to do because you're doing the job and you're doing it well. So they're going to give you more. So where do you stop with that? Social isolation, not wanting to be around people because you have to deal with a situation or the situation, a stressful, some type of stress is related to being in public or in that social circle. So we isolate ourselves to avoid it. Self-harm, beating up yourself with just negative thoughts about you're not very smart, you're not good at this, you can't do this, you don't want to do this, anything that affects your ability to be positive, so you beat yourself up. So in this segment, we're going to talk about how to change the story. Changing the story from the bad ending or the negative ending to a healthier ending. So how do we start to even do that? Well, I have a list of things called the can't happen items, things that we cannot fix. We cannot eliminate stress. Would be wonderful. Life would be grand. Maybe. But truthfully, stress is needed. It keeps our body working appropriately and functioning to its full potential or optimally. So we need stress. We cannot force positivity. We cannot say, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. That's self-talk, and that's positive self-talk, but it's false self-talk. You're not buying into it, but you're trying to force it, the positivity, so that you can change the way you visualize the stress. And it just doesn't happen. We all know that. We've tried it. We can't ignore it. Ignoring it just increases the stress and causes us to have more maladaptive mechanisms and affects our relationships. And we can't just do it. We cannot just do it. As you saw in that cute little funny video, we can't just stop and say, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore, because our brain doesn't work that way. Our brain responds to the stress, so we can't just stop it. On the other side of that, we have things that we must do. My must-do list, or my must-do items. We must recognize the distress. We must realize when that stress comes up in our life, we need to recognize that it's there and that it's causing us distress in our life and affecting our functioning. We must change the trajectory of our response. So instead of letting it bring us down, we need to change how the ending is going to be by saying we're going to make it more of a positive ending as much as possible. So we need to change the trajectory. That does not roll off my tongue very well. Trajectory. We must learn how to change the response. So changing the response, remember I just said we can't just do it. So we must learn how to change it. We must be proactive. So we must say, we are going to change this. We need to be intentional in our pursuit of changing how we respond. And lastly, we must practice it. We all have skills. Every skill you have, whether it's a job skill, a life skill, a sports skill, whatever, it requires practice. Every skill requires practice. Practice makes habits, and habits become automatic. So I want you to take a 5-minute break and think of a time in the last month that your stress was just overwhelming. And then I want you to answer these questions. Did you recognize the stress when it occurred? How did you deal with it? Was it adaptive or maladaptive? Positive or negative? Were you pleased with how you handled it? And lastly, how would you choose an adaptive coping mechanism next time that would change your response to the stress? So just take a few minutes and think about that on your own. So the last segment is focused on the takeaways. What are the takeaways from this session today? First one is, remember, you are not broken. You are adapting. Second, all skills require practice. All practice makes habits. All habits become automatic. Make sure that the skills you are promoting healthy growth and resiliency and not harm. And third, only you can take care of you. So start making sure you are being intentional in establishing positive change to abate negative circumstances, because negative circumstances are going to always come up. But that's all the time we have today. I do thank you for spending time with me. The next episode in this series will be devoted to demystifying the anxiety response. And always consider that mental health is all about mental ease. And that is all about mental ease, me. So until next time, just breathe.